My house in Walnut Creek is too big for a single woman of my years. 6 rooms that I haven't used in a long time are gathering dust, and the staircases are becoming more impregnable each year for my 67 years. However, there is a beauty in this empty space. I am finally on my own after 42 years of marriage to Frederick Harlow. My husband passed away 8 months ago, quietly in his sleep, as he always wanted. No fuss, Dot, he'd say, using my shortened name, which I always disliked but let him. Frederick was always practical, even in matters of his own death. The morning light shines through the blinds in the kitchen, creating a striped pattern on the table where I drink my usual morning tea. Rituals are all I have left. Later, I'll stop by the dry cleaners, then the pharmacy for some medicine, and afterward, I'll stop by to see Unaya, my longtime friend, the only one I can speak frankly with. The quiet life of an old widow in a prosperous town. I flinch when the doorbell rings, a sharp, insistent ring. Liam never rings like that, usually 3 short, delicate rings. My son inherited this strange habit of apologizing for his existence from his father, so she has come with him again. Dash, dash, Mom, Liam exclaims from the doorway, hugging me with exaggerated tenderness, as if trying to make up for 2 weeks of absence. How are you holding up? He's 39, but there's a gray streak in his reddish hair, as early as his father's. His eyes, my eyes, are gray-green, always a little worried, like he's always afraid of disappointing someone. It's fine, I reply, habitually dodging a long hug. Come on in. Veronica slips past me, leaving a trail of luscious perfume. Blonde, 13 years younger than Liam, with impeccable manicure and makeup even at 9 on a Sunday morning. She's dressed in a cream pantsuit that clearly costs more than the average citizen's monthly pension. Dorothy. She nods at me with a strained smile, not even bothering to say hello properly. I've never asked to be called Mom, but calling me by my first name always sounds like a special kind of disdain on her part. We walk into the kitchen, where I automatically put the kettle on. Don't bother, Dorothy, Veronica says, keeping her fake smile on. We just had breakfast at the Blue Door. They have amazing organic croissants with almonds. Liam looks guilty. He and I used to have breakfast together every Sunday. A tradition started when he was a teenager, after Frederick worked 6 days a week and preferred to sleep in on his only day off. That was our time. Now he eats breakfast with her at flashy cafes we could never afford when we were raising him. We have news, Mom, Liam says, rubbing his hands together nervously, a gesture he inherited from his father. Veronica got a promotion. Congratulations, I say automatically, even though I know it's going to be followed by a boastful monologue. I'm a senior digital marketing specialist now. Veronica sits down, tipping her foot up, showing off shoes that I'm sure cost as much as I spend on groceries in a month. Of course, this means more responsibility, more business trips, but it also means a significant pay raise. I nod, pouring myself a cup of tea. I don't offer it to them. I know they'll refuse. How are you doing, Mom? Liam asks, sitting down across from me. Have you been to the doctor? How's your arthritis? Veronica barely holds back a yawn. My health is the last thing on her mind. It's fine, I answer, not going into details about sleepless nights because of the pain or the fact that sometimes I can't hold a cup. Was there something you wanted? Liam looks confused, but Veronica quickly takes over the conversation. Dash. Actually, yeah. We wanted to talk about the house. She glances around the kitchen, lingering on the cracked tile that Frederick and I never changed. It's hard for you to maintain it alone. We thought, you thought, I interrupted, knowing where this was going. We thought, Veronica stresses the first word, that you'd be better off in a nursing home or a smaller apartment. This house is too big for you, and frankly, it needs a major overhaul. I look at Liam, who avoids my gaze. A wimp, always has been, always will be. Indulging his wife, who sees me as nothing more than a burden and an obstacle to an inheritance she thinks is almost non existent. No, I answer simply. I'm not moving anywhere. Mom, Liam starts, and I recognize that tone right away. The same tone he used when he was a kid trying to beg for a new bike or a console. We're worried about you. If you fall, I don't fall. I cut him off. And even if I do, I have a medical alarm. I point to the bracelet on my wrist. And neighbors who, unlike some people, check in on me more than once every 2 weeks. Liam blushes, and Veronica presses her lips together so hard they turn into a thin line. We just want what's best for you, she says in the tone one usually uses with cranky children. And then the house could be sold. It's a good time for the real estate market. No. Veronica is clearly annoyed by my refusal, but she quickly changes tactics. Okay, she says with feigned humility, but think about it. It would make you feel a lot better. You'd feel a lot better, I think, but don't say it out loud. After they leave, I sit in the kitchen for a long time, finishing my cooled tea. This house is all I have left of Frederick, of our life together. Every crack in the wall, every creaking floorboard is part of our history. I've never been sentimental, but now, in my old age, I'm beginning to realize the value of material reminders. The doorbell rings, snapping me out of my musings. A messenger stands on the doorstep with an envelope. Dash Mrs. Harlow? Dash, he asks, holding out a form for me to sign. The papers are from Mr. Bloomfield. Peter Bloomfield is Frederick's attorney handling our will and estate. Usually he calls before he sends the documents, but it must be urgent. I sign and pick up the envelope. Inside are several sheets of official papers and a short note from Peter. Dorothy, the probate is complete. All assets are now officially transferred into your name. Please review the final amount and call me if you have any questions. I run my eyes over the paperwork and my heart skips a beat. $10 million. 10 million. I reread the figure over and over, written in words so there's no mistake. From where? How? Frederick and I had always lived modestly. He worked as an engineer for a small company. I worked as an accountant at the local school. We saved, of course there were small investments, but 10 million? And then I remember. Years ago, when Liam was about 10, Frederick had invested in some technology company on the advice of a colleague. It was a small amount of money, small by our standards back then. He never mentioned it much afterwards. Did he really? I reach for the phone to call Peter, but I'm interrupted by another ring at the door. This time it's Edgar Price, my neighbor on my right, a gaunt 70-year-old man with a military bearing and sharp, attentive eyes. Dash Dorothy, he nods. Sorry to bother you, but have you seen my cat? He's gone again, the bastard. No, Edgar, I haven't, I replied, instinctively tucking the papers behind my back. But if I do, I'll let you know. He nods, but doesn't leave. Are you okay? You look worried. Just, family stuff. I brush it off. It's no big deal. Edgar nods understandingly. He's a widower, too. His wife died 3 years ago. Sometimes we have tea together, but we don't go beyond neighborly courtesy. If you need anything. He leaves it unfinished, but I understand. Thank you, I say sincerely. After he leaves, I return to my paperwork. I need to call Peter, clear the air, but first I need to hide these papers. Liam and Veronica might come back. They often forget things. But the ringing of the phone distracts me, and without thinking, I leave the papers on the kitchen table while I go to answer it. It's Unaya, and we talk for almost an hour. I tell her about Liam and Veronica's visit, but I don't mention the inheritance. I want to figure it all out on my own first. When I get back to the kitchen, the papers are still on the table. I put them in the dresser drawer in the bedroom. locking them with a key that I hide in a tin cookie box, my traditional hiding place from when Liam used to look for Christmas presents. The day passes in the usual hassle. I go to the dry cleaners, then the drugstore. I call Peter, but get an answering machine. It's Sunday, of course, it's not working. I leave a message asking for a call back. In the evening, as I'm getting ready for bed, I get a call. Liam and Veronica are on the doorstep again, this time with a bottle of my favorite wine. It's weird, they never memorize details like this. Mom, Liam smiles wider than usual. We thought we were too pushy this morning. We wanted to apologize. Veronica smiles too, but her eyes remain cold. Yes, Dorothy, she says, holding out the bottle to me. We have to respect your decisions. I let them in, puzzled by this sudden change. They've never apologized before, especially Veronica. We sit in the living room, drinking wine. They brought glasses, knowing I only have cheap glass ones. Veronica is unusually attentive, asking about my health, even offering to go to the doctor with me next week. You look tired, she says with feigned concern. You need more rest. I'm fine, I reply, watching her gaze wander around the room as if looking for something. Did you get any news today? She asks casually. Letters, phone calls? And then it hits me. Papers. They saw the papers on the desk. I left them when I went to take Unaya's call, and they… What? Did they come back for something they forgot? Or did Veronica forget something on purpose to have an excuse to come back? No, I answer, watching her reaction. It's nothing special. Why? Just asking. She shrugs, but I can see the disappointment in her eyes. They leave an hour later, Veronica hugging me goodbye, the first time in the 5 years they've been married. That hug feels like a yank. Closing the door behind them, I lean my back against it and exhale slowly. Something has changed. Something has fundamentally changed in our family dynamic, and I don't like it at all. I walk back into the bedroom and check the dresser drawer. The papers are there. The key is in the tin. But that doesn't mean anything. They could have taken a picture on their phone or memorized the amount. $10 million. A sum that could change not only lives, but the people around it. I always knew Veronica didn't marry Liam for love. He was her ticket to a stable middle-class life, not wealth, but security. Now, with millions on the horizon, I sit on the edge of the bed, suddenly feeling every one of my 67 years. What to do? Talk to Liam directly? No use. He'll always take his wife's side. Change the will? But the money is already officially mine, and when I die, it will still go to him as the sole heir. A crazy thought flashes through my mind. What if their sudden concern means something more sinister? What if Veronica doesn't want to wait for the natural course of events? I shake my head, pushing the paranoid thoughts away. No, not even she's capable of such a thing. Or is she? I decide I'll call Peter tomorrow and clear up the inheritance situation. In the meantime, I have to stay alert and not accept any food or drink from my sister-in-law. Before I go to bed, I check the locks on the doors and windows. For the first time in a long time, I am not afraid of abstract thieves or hooligans, but of my own family. The next morning, I called Peter Bloomfield. He confirmed what the documents said. $10 million indeed. Frederick's investment in a small technology company had turned out to be a gold mine. The stock, bought for next to nothing 27 years ago, had increased in value hundreds of times. Frederick followed this up by periodically selling some of it and reinvesting in other promising projects. He did it quietly, without attracting attention. Not even mine. He wanted to surprise you on your 40th wedding anniversary, Peter said. He was planning that trip around the world you'd always dreamed of. I squeezed the receiver of the phone. 2 years. Frederick was 2 years short of our 40th anniversary. A heart attack took him suddenly, without warning. Dorothy, are you all right? Peter's voice brought me back to reality. Yes, I answered, wiping away an unsolicited tear. It's just, it's a lot of information all at once. I understand. Don't rush into any decisions. The money won't go anywhere. It's safely placed. After the conversation, I sat for a long time, looking out the window at the street where the neighbors' children were playing. $10 million, a sum Frederick and I had never even dreamed of. We were saving for a modest old age, saving for Liam's college fund. We were frugal, but not poor, and now I'm suddenly rich. The doorbell rang, interrupting my musings. Veronica stood on the doorstep with a fruit basket. Dash Dorothy, she smiled. I was driving by the farmer's market and thought of you. They were just bringing in fresh peaches, your favorite, right? I tensed up. In the 5 years Veronica had been married to my son, she'd never once come to visit me alone, and she'd certainly never remembered my preferences. Thank you. I took the basket, deciding not to answer the question about peaches, which, by the way, I couldn't stand. Frederick liked peaches, not me. May I come in? She had already slipped past me into the hallway. I thought we could have tea, a chat, woman talk. I followed her into the kitchen, watching her move casually through my house as if she was here every day. Is Liam at work? I asked, putting the kettle on. Yes, he has an important presentation. She settled herself at the table. He's so nervous, poor thing. He's never been good at public speaking. She was right about that. Liam's always been a shy boy. At school, he used to have panic attacks before speeches. Frederick and I took him to specialists, but the problem never went away. You know, Veronica continued as she watched me take out the cups. Liam and I are thinking about remodeling our house. Maybe you could stop by and look at some wallpaper samples. You've always had good taste. Another lie. Veronica repeatedly criticized my outdated style in clothes and interior. I'd love to, but I've been having back problems lately. I lied back. It's hard to sit in the car for long periods of time. Oh, she made a concerned face. Is it serious? Have you seen a doctor? Maybe you should get an MRI. I can arrange an appointment with a good specialist. I put a cup of tea in front of her, noting that she didn't even say thank you. Everything's under control, just normal age-related changes. And how are you feeling overall? She sipped her tea, keeping her eyes on me. At your age, it's so important to take care of your health. At my age, I repeated with a touch of irony, it's important to keep an eye on who's keeping an eye on your health. She didn't catch the hint or pretended not to. By the way, she said, as if by the way, have you thought of updating your will? A lot of things have changed since Frederick died. Here it is. I could barely contain a smile. Actually, yes, I answered, watching her move forward. Peter's working on it. Really? There was a flicker of eager interest in her eyes. And what have you decided? It's confidential. I took a sip of tea. Even Liam doesn't know yet. But we're family, she countered. There shouldn't be secrets. Some things are better kept to yourself, I replied, at least for the time being. Veronica was clearly annoyed, but she quickly pulled herself together. Of course I understand. She smiled again. I just wanted to make sure everything was okay. Liam is so worried about you. Tell him I'm fine. I stood up, signaling that the visit was over. And thanks for the fruit. After she left, I threw the peaches away. I wasn't paranoid, but I preferred not to take chances, especially now that it was clear Veronica knew about the money. Frederick and I had a typical generational history. We met in college, married in our 3rd year. I got pregnant almost immediately, and Frederick had to drop out of school to support his family. He got a job at a factory, where he eventually rose to engineer. I graduated from college when Liam was 3 and went to work as an accountant. We lived modestly, But we were not poor. Frederick was always thrifty, saving part of his paycheck, saying, "Dot, we have to provide for Liam's future." I didn't mind, although sometimes I dreamed of more, traveling, nice clothes, a new car. But as the years passed, I grew accustomed to our lifestyle. Liam grew up a withdrawn, sensitive boy. Books, not sports. Dreams, not action. Frederick sometimes lamented, "Why can't he be like other boys?" But I defended my son. He's special. And that's a good thing. In college, Liam studied English literature. Frederick and I hoped he would become a teacher, a stable job, good prospects. But after graduation, he took a job at a small publishing house with a meager salary where he met Veronica. She worked there as a marketing manager, ambitious, driven, 13 years younger than Liam. Beautiful, if you like that type. Blonde hair, blue eyes, perfect figure, maintained by daily visits to the gym. Liam fell in love immediately and unconditionally. Veronica reciprocated after she found out his parents owned a house in an upscale neighborhood. It wasn't that she was an outright money huntress, rather, she was looking for stability and status. Liam was a convenient option, in love, malleable, with the prospect of an inheritance. Frederick had figured her out right away. "That girl is not with you for love, son," he once said. Liam took offense, didn't speak to his father for 2 weeks. I tried to smooth over the conflict, although in my heart I agreed with my husband. The wedding was lavish, Veronica insisted. Frederick and I paid half of the costs, although we had originally planned a more modest celebration. "This is once in a lifetime," she said, choosing the most expensive wedding dress in the salon. After the wedding, Veronica quickly changed jobs, getting a job at a large marketing company. Liam stayed at the publishing house, where his career was practically standing still. Gradually, their financial imbalance became more and more obvious. She earned 3 times as much, bought expensive clothes, insisted on buying a house in a good neighborhood. Liam took on extra projects so he wouldn't feel like a kept man, but still his contribution was incomparably less. Veronica never missed a chance to remind him of that. Not directly, of course. Subtle hints, condescending comments. "Oh, honey, it's nice that you want to pay for dinner, but let me do it. You're a little tight on money right now, aren't you?" Or, "You really need a new suit. The one you're wearing looks budget." I watched my son gradually lose confidence in himself, becoming a shadow of his wife. Frederick was angry. Why does he let her treat him like that? Where's his pride? But I understood. Liam was afraid of losing Veronica, considered himself lucky to have such a wife, and was willing to endure humiliation. A week before he died, Frederick said to me, "Dot, I'm worried about the future. Liam is weak. His wife is a predator. When I'm gone, be careful with her." I'd brushed it off then. Frederick had always been a bit paranoid. Now his words sounded prophetic. Over the next 3 days, Veronica called me 6 times and stopped by twice with soup, which I poured down the sink, not daring to try, and an invitation to a family dinner the following Friday. "It's been so long since we've gotten together," she said with fake warmth. "Liam misses you so much." "Why doesn't he call?" I asked bluntly. "Oh, you know how he is," she said. "Always busy, head in the clouds." I reminded him of the need for family contact. I agreed to come, determined to keep the game going. I wondered how far Veronica was willing to go. When I finally spoke to Liam on the phone, he sounded tense. "Mom, are you okay? Veronica said you had back problems." "What other ailments did she give me?" I asked ironically. "What?" He sounded confused. "No, she's just worried about you." "We both are." "Somehow, you didn't show such interest in my health before." "Mom?" He sounded annoyed. "We've always cared about you. It's just that now that Dad's gone—" "Yes, yes, I understand," I interrupted. I'll be at dinner on Friday. After the call, I stared at Frederick's picture on the mantelpiece for a long time. What would you do if you were me, dear? How would you protect our son from this woman? There was no answer, of course. Frederick had always been a practical man, solving problems as they came, never panicking beforehand. Let's get all the facts first, Dot, then we'll act, he used to say. That's exactly what I decided to do. Gather the facts. Find out how far Veronica was willing to go for money. Friday morning, I called Unaya and told her about the situation, the inheritance, Veronica's strange behavior, my suspicions. Do you think she's capable of? Unaya didn't finish the sentence. I don't know, I answered honestly. But 10 million is a big temptation. Maybe we should talk to the police, suggested a friend. What would I tell them? My sister-in-law is too nice to me? Arrest her? They won't even take a statement without proof. Then be careful, Unaya advised. Don't eat or drink anything in their house. Dinner at a restaurant, I clarified. But yes, I will be careful. After the conversation, I decided to check my car, an old but reliable Ford that Frederick and I had bought 10 years ago. I wasn't a mechanic, but I knew the basic stuff. Frederick insisted I learn how to change a tire and check the oil level. In the garage, it looked like business as usual. I checked the tires, looked under the hood, nothing suspicious. Maybe I really am getting paranoid. That evening, I dressed especially carefully, the dark blue dress Frederick had always loved, the pearl earrings he'd given me for our 30th wedding anniversary. Nothing flashy, but elegant. I wanted Veronica to see that I wasn't a helpless old woman. I was a woman who knew her worth. Before I left, I called Edgar, my neighbor. Edgar, it's Dorothy. I'm sorry to bother you, but I need a small favor. Of course, he was always willing to help, especially after his wife's death, when neighborly self-help became his way of dealing with loneliness. I'm on my way to dinner with my son and daughter-in-law. If I'm not back by 11 p.m. and I don't call you, please call the police. There was a pause. Dorothy, is everything all right? There was genuine concern in his voice. Just a reassurance, I answered easily. After Frederick died so suddenly, I've been a little paranoid. I understand. He didn't sound convinced, but he agreed. I'll wait for your call until 11. When I left the house, there was the smell of rain in the air. Autumn in Walnut Creek had always been my favorite time of year. Cool but not cold. Golden leaves on the trees, pumpkins on the doorsteps of the houses. Frederick loved winter, Liam loved summer, and I loved fall. Everyone in our family had their own preferences, and we respected each other's choices. At least, that's the way it used to be. I got in the car, buckled up, and put my hands on the steering wheel. But I didn't start the engine right away. Instead, I looked at the house where I'd lived most of my life, where Liam was born and raised, where Frederick and I had grown old together, planning a trip that wasn't meant to be. What would you do, Fred? I asked mentally again. And again, I got no answer. I started the car and pulled into the driveway, heading towards the restaurant where my son and his wife were waiting for me. I didn't know how the evening would end, but I was prepared for any turn of events. After all, I had lived a long life and had seen people at their best and worst. I knew what greed could do, and I was determined to protect myself and, if I could, my son. Along the way, I thought about how our family had changed over the years. When Liam was little, we were so close. I read to him before bed, helped him with his homework, listened to his secrets. When he first fell in love at 14, I was the one he told about it, not his father. I was his confidant, his protector. Somewhere along the way, we lost that connection. Maybe when he left for college, or when he met Veronica. It's hard to say. Relationships don't crumble in an instant. It's a gradual process, made up of small cracks that eventually turn into an abyss. The restaurant Veronica chose was one of the most expensive in Walnut Creek, the Laurel Leaf, specializing in Mediterranean cuisine. Frederick and I used to come here only on special occasions, anniversaries, important holidays, not the place for a casual family dinner on a Friday night. I parked and looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror. An older woman with gray hair styled in a simple but elegant style, wrinkles around her eyes and mouth, the marks of years lived, smiles, and sorrows. I put on some lipstick and got out of the car, ready for another round of our family game. Wednesday morning began with an insistent phone call. I had not yet had time to drink my morning tea when Veronica's ringing voice sounded on the other end of the line. Dorothy, good morning. Are you awake? I looked at my watch, 8:30. Early morning by my standards, especially for unscheduled calls. Not anymore, I answered dryly, trying to figure out why I was so enthusiastic. Great, she exclaimed, not noticing my tone. I have a fantastic idea. Let's have a family dinner tonight. I made a reservation at the Azure for 7 o'clock tonight. Azure was probably the most exquisite restaurant in Walnut Creek, even more expensive than the Laurel Leaf, where we had dinner the previous Friday night. That night had been tense. Veronica was overly sweet. Liam was nervous, and I pretended not to notice their odd behavior. Veronica, it's Wednesday. We don't usually have family dinners on weekdays. Oh, come on, she said, her voice sounding playfully cheerful. Sometimes you have to indulge yourself. Besides, I have some news I want to share. My heart skipped a beat. News? What news? Did she find out something about the will? What news? I asked, trying to sound indifferent. You'll find out tonight. She laughed. It's a surprise. Will you come? I hesitated. On the one hand, I didn't like the way things were developing. On the other, it was better to keep my enemies close. Okay, I'll be there at 7. That's great, she exclaimed. Liam will pick you up at 6:30. No need, I said quickly. I'll drive myself. I prefer to be independent. There was a pause on the other end. Are you sure it's not a problem for Liam? I'm pretty sure. I'll meet you at the restaurant. After the call, I felt strangely uneasy. Why would she want Liam to pick me up? She usually insisted I come on my own, saying something like, You're still quite independent, Dorothy. It's good for you to get out of the house. I called Unaya and told her about the invitation. I don't like it, she said. She's trying too hard to get you to come. I don't like it either, I agreed. But I want to know what she's up to. Be careful, Dorothy. She may be more dangerous than you think. The day dragged on slowly. I tried to distract myself with everyday tasks. I did the laundry, watered the flowers, went through old photo albums. In one of the photos, Liam was sitting on Frederick's shoulders, just a little boy. They were both smiling openly, genuinely. When did my boy lose that ability to enjoy life? When did his smile become strained, his eyes wary? Around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the doorbell rang. Edgar stood on the doorstep with a box of homemade cookies. Too many cookies, he said with a shy smile. I thought you might want some for tea. I invited him in. We sat in the kitchen, drinking tea and cookies. Really good ones. Edgar was a good pastry chef, and talking about the weather, about the neighbors, about plans for the winter. A pleasant, non-committal conversation. Dorothy, he said, setting the cup aside. May I ask you a personal question? I tensed but nodded. Have you noticed anything strange lately? Around the house, for instance? I looked at him carefully. What do you mean? He fidgeted in his chair, clearly uncomfortable. I was walking Rudy last night. He was talking about his dog, a small terrier, and I noticed a car parked across the street. A dark sedan, not from our neighborhood. Someone was sitting inside and seemed to be watching your house. I felt a chill run down my spine. Are you sure they were looking at my house? Pretty sure. When Rudy barked, the car drove off. Did you get the license plate number? No, it was dark. He shook his head. But the car looked familiar. In what way? I don't know. He shrugged. I just felt like I'd seen it somewhere before. After Edgar left, I stood at the window for a long time, staring out at the street. It was the usual quiet suburbia, the manicured lawns, the neat houses, the occasional passerby. It was hard to imagine that anyone could be following me. But after receiving the information about the inheritance, I stopped trusting the obvious. At 5 o'clock, I began to prepare for dinner. I chose a dark red dress that fit well, despite my age and not so perfect figure. Frederick always said that color made my eyes brighter. I wore a pearl necklace, a gift for our 35th anniversary. I put my hair up in a simple but elegant bun. Looking in the mirror, I saw a woman who had lived a long life, with joys and sorrows, victories and defeats. A woman who had survived the death of her beloved husband and now faced the betrayal of her family. But there was still strength in my eyes, the same strength that had gotten me through the Great Recession, when Frederick and I almost lost our home. The strength that had sustained me when Liam had been in a car accident at 16 and was in a coma for 2 weeks. The strength that had kept me from breaking when Frederick died in my arms. At 6:15, I was ready. I decided to leave early. The restaurant was 20 minutes away, but I preferred to have time to spare. I grabbed my purse, checked my keys, phone, and wallet, and headed for the garage. Something was wrong. I didn't immediately realize what it was, but some sixth sense made me freeze in the garage doorway. I looked around. Everything seemed to be in its place. Frederick's tools were neatly arranged on the workbench, gardening tools in the corner, boxes of Christmas decorations on the shelves. And yet something was different. I walked over to the car, my old silver Ford that had faithfully served Frederick and me for over a decade. I took a closer look. There was a small oil stain on the concrete floor beneath the car that I could have sworn hadn't been there yesterday. I'd always kept the garage tidy, a habit I'd picked up from the pedantic Frederick. I knelt down, wincing at the pain in my joints, and peered under the car. I didn't see anything unusual, but that didn't mean anything. I wasn't a mechanic. Frederick had always taken care of the car. I'd had it serviced after he died, and there hadn't been a problem since. Shaking my head, I straightened up and opened the car door. I got behind the wheel and put my purse on the passenger seat. I put the key in the ignition, and then something unexpected happened. The front door of the garage rattled open, and Edgar appeared on the doorstep. His usually neat shirt was unbuttoned, his gray hair disheveled, his eyes wide with terror. "Dash Dorothy!" he shouted with such desperation that I froze with the key in my hand. "Don't start the engine. Your son's wife has clipped your brakes." For a second I sat motionless, trying to comprehend his words. Then I slowly took the key out of the ignition and got out of the car. "What did you say?" My voice sounded surprisingly calm under the circumstances. Edgar came closer, his face pale, sweat beading on his forehead. "I saw her this afternoon, about 1 o'clock. She drove up in that dark sedan I told you about, looked around, made sure no one was home, opened the garage with her key. She doesn't have a key to my house," I interrupted. "So she made a duplicate." He shook his head. "The point is, she got under the car and was doing something. I saw it from my office window. I tried to gather my thoughts. It sounded so absurd that I almost laughed. Almost. Edgar, are you sure? Maybe you imagined it?" "Dorothy," he put his hands on my shoulders, looking me straight in the eye. "I've been a police officer for 27 years. I know what I saw. She was fiddling with the brake system. When she left, I wanted to call you, but I remembered I didn't have your number. I went to your place, but you weren't home. I went to the drugstore. I answered automatically. I was going to come again, but I was distracted by a call from my daughter. And when I saw you coming into the garage, a chill ran down my spine. Veronica, the daughter-in-law who'd suddenly become so thoughtful after learning of the inheritance, the one who'd insisted on taking me out to dinner tonight, who suggested that Liam come and pick me up. "We need to call the police," Edgar said, pulling out his cell phone. "Wait." I stopped him with a gesture. "Let's make sure first." I walked over to the workbench where Frederick's tools were still stored and grabbed a flashlight. I knelt down again and shone it under the car. There were fresh scratches on the brake hoses, and one of the hoses had clearly been cut, not all the way through, but enough to tear when I pressed down hard on the brake pedal. I straightened up, feeling my hands shaking. Not from fear, but from rage. "Oh, crap," I whispered. Edgar reached for the phone again. "I'm calling the police." "No." I shook my head. "Not yet. Dorothy, this is attempted murder." "I know," I said, surprised at my own calmness. "But we have no proof that Veronica did it. I saw her. You saw a woman who looked like her doing something under my car. That's not enough to convict." He looked at me with bewilderment. "Then, what are you suggesting?" I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts. Frederick had always said I thought like a chess player, a few moves ahead. Now I needed to use that ability. "Do you have a camera? Or a cell phone with a good camera?" "I have a phone." He pulled out a smartphone. "It's pretty new. My daughter gave it to me for my birthday." "All right." Cell phone beeps. "Take pictures of the damage." I pointed to the cut brake hose. "Take some pictures from different angles." While Edgar took pictures, I went into the house and pulled out the tape recorder I'd been using to record my memoirs, a project I'd started after Frederick's death as a way to preserve memories for Liam. I checked to make sure it was working and put it in my purse. "What now?" Edgar asked, back in the house. "Now I need a cab." "Are you still going to that dinner?" He looked shocked. "After what she did? Especially after that." I nodded. "I want to look her in the eye. I want to hear what she'll say when she sees me alive and well." "It's dangerous." Edgar shook his head. "She's already tried to kill you. Who knows what she'll do when she realizes the first plan failed? In a restaurant full of people?" I grinned bitterly. "Veronica cares too much about her reputation for a public scandal." Edgar looked unconvinced, but he didn't argue. "Fine, but I'm going with you." "No," I objected. "She can't know you know. You're my bargaining chip, Edgar, my only witness." We argued for a few more minutes, but finally he agreed to stay home on the condition that I keep my phone on and he can call me at any time, disguised as a neighbor checking to see if everything's okay. The cab arrived 15 minutes later. The driver, a young guy with dreadlocks, looked at me strangely in my evening dress but said nothing. I gave him the address of the restaurant and leaned back in the seat, feeling the adrenaline pulsing through my veins. The drive to Azura's took about 20 minutes. All the way there, I tried to gather my thoughts, to decide how to behave, what to say. Accuse Veronica directly? But that might scare her off, make her more cautious, pretend I didn't know anything. But then she might try again. I hadn't come up with the perfect solution by the time the cab pulled up outside the restaurant. I paid the driver with a generous tip and got out of the car. The Azure was housed in an old mansion that had been converted into a restaurant. White columns, marble steps, crystal chandeliers visible through the high windows. Everything screamed luxury and sophistication. The maitre d', a young man in an impeccable suit, met me at the entrance. "Good evening, ma'am. Do you have a reservation?" "Yes, under the name of Harlow. Or perhaps Pierce," I said, Veronica's last name, which she'd kept after her marriage, insisting it was important to her career. He checked the list in his clipboard. "Ah, yes, a table for 3. Your companions have already arrived. Let me show you out." I followed him through an elegant room lined with tables covered with white tablecloths. Classical music played softly, and the muffled voices of the visitors created a cozy background. In the center of the room, I saw them Liam in a dark suit and Veronica in a tight black dress. They were sitting close to each other and talking quietly about something. As I got closer, I could make out bits and pieces of their conversation. Are you sure this is going to work? Liam's voice sounded tense. Of course. Veronica put her hand over his. It'll look like an accident. She's not an old woman. No one will be surprised. At that moment, the maitre d' coughed, drawing their attention. Your guest, he announced. Liam and Veronica turned sharply. My son's face went pale, and Veronica looked like she'd seen a ghost. Her eyes widened, her mouth dropped open in a silent scream, and then she slowly, as if in slow motion, began to slump back in her chair. A second later, her eyes rolled back and she passed out, sliding under the table. Liam jumped up, looking at me and his wife in confusion. Mom, what are you? Veronica. He knelt down beside her, patting her cheeks. Other customers and restaurant staff began to gather around. She needs air, someone said. Call an ambulance, another voice suggested. I stood motionless, watching the scene with a strange detachment. The tape recorder in my purse continued to record. A small crowd had formed around Veronica. The maitre d' had ordered water and smelling salts, and a waiter was already rushing in with a first aid kit. Liam, pale and confused, kept slapping his wife's cheeks, repeating her name. I watched silently, feeling strangely calm. The shock of the conversation had been replaced by a cold determination. Now I had confirmation. They were really planning my death. My own son and his wife. Veronica began to come to her senses. Her eyelashes fluttered. She groaned and slowly opened her eyes, looking around incomprehensibly. Then her gaze stopped on me, a look of horror in her eyes. Is everything all right, ma'am? The maitre d' asked, handing her a glass of water. Yes, she mumbled, trying to sit up straight. I'm just dizzy. I must not have eaten enough today. Veronica. Liam put his arm around her shoulders. Should we call a doctor? No, she answered too harshly, then softened her tone. No, we don't. I feel better already. Really. Gradually, the curious onlookers dispersed, and it was just the three of us. I was still standing, not sitting down at the table. Mom, Liam looked at me with a nervous smile. You're early. We were expecting you by 7. I decided to get here early, I replied calmly. Just in time, as you can see. Veronica straightened up, fixing her hair and trying to regain her composure. Dorothy, you scared us, she said with a fake smile. We weren't expecting you so early. I noticed. I nodded, looking her straight in the eye. By the way, how did you get here? In your car? I finally sat down at the table, putting my purse with the recorder on next to me. Yes, of course, she replied, blinking incomprehensibly. Why? Nothing, just curious. I shrugged. What about you, Liam? Did you two come together or in separate cars? My son looked confused by these seemingly pointless questions. We drove together in Veronica's car. Mine is being repaired. I see, I nodded. So you'd both been here since… when? Since 6. Since 7:30? Since about 6:15, Liam answered, still not sure where I was going with this. Mom, what's going on? I ignored his question and turned to Veronica. I wonder where you were at around 1 o'clock this afternoon. Her face tensed, but she quickly regained her composure. At work, of course, she laughed, but it sounded fake. Where else? Really? Can your co-workers confirm that? Now, Veronica looked genuinely worried. Dorothy, why the questions? What's going on? I didn't have time to answer because a waiter came to the table. Good evening. Would you like to order something? A glass of your best red wine, I said, not looking at the menu. I have a lot to celebrate tonight. Liam and Veronica exchanged confused looks. 2 glasses of white, Liam ordered, and please give us a few more minutes to choose our entrees. When the waiter stepped away, I turned to Veronica again. You know, a funny thing happened today. My neighbor Edgar saw some woman who looked a lot like you fiddling under my car. Weird, isn't it? Veronica's face turned white, and Liam shifted his gaze from her to me. What? What are you talking about? He laughed nervously. Why would Veronica? Dorothy, Veronica interrupted him, trying to stay calm. I don't know what your neighbor told you, but I've been at work all day. Maybe he was mistaken. Maybe. I nodded thoughtfully. Except that when I got ready to drive here, Edgar came running into my garage yelling at me not to start the car. Turns out someone had cut the brake hoses. Who could it have been, Veronica? There was a heavy silence. Liam looked like he'd been punched in the face. Veronica sat motionless, only her fingers frantically clutching the napkin. This is some kind of mistake, she finally said in a shaky voice. Or, or a joke. A very cruel joke. A joke? I raised an eyebrow. The severed brake hoses are a joke? Or maybe your conversation I overheard as I approached the table is a joke too? About how this is going to look like an accident. Liam turned sharply to Veronica, his face contorted with shock and disbelief. What, Veronica? What is she talking about? Veronica tried to pull herself together. She's got it all wrong, she said, putting her hand on Liam's shoulder. We were talking about a script for a corporate video. We have a security project. You're lying, I said coldly. You planned my death, Veronica, and from the look on my son's face, he was in on it. Dash, dash, Mom, Liam exclaimed. How can you say that? I never. Then explain what accident were you talking about? I looked him straight in the eye. And about how no one will be surprised because I'm a young woman? The waiter returned with the wine, and we all fell silent. I thanked him and took a sip, savoring the moment of tense silence. When the waiter left, Veronica spoke first. Dorothy, you've got it all wrong. Her voice sounded almost pleading. I swear we never meant you any harm. We love you. Love you? I grinned bitterly. So much so that you decided to hasten my departure so you could get the inheritance? What inheritance? Liam looked genuinely confused. Mom, what are you talking about? I looked at him carefully. Did he really not know, or was he just playing nice? About the $10 million, I answered, watching their reactions. The one your father left me. Liam looked stunned, but I saw the familiar greedy glint in Veronica's eyes. 10 million? Dash, he whispered. But Dad, we always lived modestly. Your father was a smart investor, I said. He never bragged about it. He preferred to live within his means. And you were going to leave it all to us? Veronica couldn't hide the hope in her voice, even in this situation. Of course, I nodded. You're my only heirs. Were. The last word hung in the air like a thunderstorm before the storm. Where? Liam interjected. After today, I plan to change my will. I sipped more wine. Obviously, you can't wait for me to die naturally. Mom, this is some kind of misunderstanding. Liam tried to take my hand, but I pulled away. We never. Shut up, Liam, Veronica said abruptly. Her face changed, the mask of friendliness gone, revealing cold calculation. She wouldn't believe us anyway. She turned to me, narrowing her eyes. All right, Dorothy, let's say someone did damage your car, but you have no proof that it was me. There is a witness, I replied calmly. Edgar saw you. An old man's word against mine? She grinned. He could have gotten it wrong, or made the whole thing up. Maybe he wants your money himself. I pulled out my phone and showed her the pictures of the damaged brake hoses Edgar had taken. Is that an accident? Or maybe I damaged them myself to smear you? Veronica tensed, but didn't give up. Pictures don't prove anything. You can't prove I did it. What about your conversation that I overheard today? I pointed to my purse where I kept a tape recorder, which, by the way, is on tape. It was a bluff. The tape recorder couldn't have recorded their conversation before I got there. But Veronica didn't know that. You were recording us? Her voice trembled. It's illegal. Not in the state of California if a crime is suspected. Another bluff on my part, but judging by her face, it worked. Liam sat silent the whole time, shifting his shocked gaze from me to Veronica. Veronica, he finally said quietly, tell me the truth. Did you really try to kill my mom? She didn't answer, pressing her lips into a thin line. My God, he covered his face with his hands. I can't believe this. Why? For money? Don't play the saint, she snapped. You said yourself that your mother's been living alone in this big house for too long. It would be better if she moved to a nursing home and sold the house. But you can't kill her, he exclaimed, attracting the attention of the neighboring tables. Quiet, Veronica hissed. People are watching. Let them watch, I shrugged. Let everyone know what you were trying to do. Veronica leaned across the table toward me, her eyes narrowed. No one will believe you, she hissed. An old woman with dementia accusing her sister-in-law of attempted murder? They'll have you committed to a mental institution. I don't have dementia, Veronica. I met her gaze calmly. And I have proof, a witness, photographs, a recording. Still not enough to convict. She leaned back in her chair with a smug smile. The most you can do is forbid me from coming near you, but you won't be able to prove that I tried to kill you. Maybe, I nodded in agreement, but I could destroy your reputation. Imagine the headlines. Marketing woman tried to kill mother-in-law for inheritance. Do you think you'd keep your job, your connections, your friends? Veronica turned pale. Her reputation meant everything to her. Her career, her social status, everything depended on how she was perceived by others. You wouldn't dare, she said, but without the same confidence. I would. I took the last sip of wine and set it down. And I'm going to change the will. Neither you nor Liam will get a dime. Everything will go to charitable organizations. Liam, who until that moment had looked shocked and confused, suddenly looked up. Mom, please, his voice shook. I swear I didn't know about her plans. I would never agree to something like this. You wouldn't? I looked at him questioningly. And what were you talking about when I came up? What accident? Yeah, he stammered, avoiding my gaze. Veronica said you were thinking of moving into a nursing home, that you told her yourself, but you were afraid of my reaction. She offered to help you fall, to make you realize that it's not safe for you to live alone. And you agreed? My voice was ice cold. No, I didn't think it was a real plan. I thought she was just speculating. Theoretically, he looked pathetic, squirming in his chair. You've always been weak, Liam. I shook my head, always letting others make decisions for you. First your father, then me, now her. It's not fair. He looked hurt. I've always tried to be a good son. Good sons don't discuss how they're going to spend the money after their mother dies. I cut him off. There was a heavy silence. Veronica sat with her fists clenched, her face contorted with anger and frustration. Liam looked lost, like a boy who'd been caught stealing candy. The waiter approached the table again. Ready to order? No. I stood up, picking up my purse. We're leaving. Count the wine, please. Liam got up too. Mom, wait. We need to talk. Explain everything. We have nothing to talk about, Liam. I looked at him sadly. You made your choice. I'm making mine. I turned to leave, but Veronica suddenly grabbed my arm. Wait. Her voice sounded desperate. Daughter, please. Yeah, I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. But I can change. We can fix this. I released my hand from her grip. Some things can't be fixed, Veronica. Attempted murder is one of them. I wasn't gonna kill you, she exclaimed. Only scare you, to make you realize that it's dangerous for you to live alone. By cutting brake hoses? I raised an eyebrow skeptically. That could only lead to one thing, an accident, possibly fatal. I didn't think, she stammered, realizing how ridiculous her excuse sounded. Exactly, you didn't think, I nodded. All you saw was money, $10 million that could be yours if I were gone. By now, our conversation had gotten the attention of the entire restaurant. The people at the neighboring tables were openly listening, some of them not even trying to hide their interest. I'm sorry for disturbing you. The restaurant manager came to our table. But we have received complaints from other guests. I have to ask you to. We were just leaving. I nodded to her. Sorry for the inconvenience. I headed for the exit, feeling Liam following me. Mom, wait. He caught up with me at the door. Please don't leave like that. Let's talk. I swear, I didn't know what she was planning. I would never. That's enough, Liam. I turned to him. I'm tired of your weakness, your excuses. All your life you've let others decide for you and then say you didn't know or didn't think. It's time to take responsibility for your actions and your choices. I love you, Mom. His eyes filled with tears. You're the only family I have left. And you betrayed me. I felt my voice shake. For a woman who only sees you as a means to make money. That's not true. He shook his head. Veronica loves me. Really? I grinned bitterly. Then why was she willing to risk your happiness, your freedom, for money? Because if her plan had worked and you'd been caught, you'd have been an accessory to murder. That silenced him. He stood there, opening and closing his mouth like a beached fish, unable to find the words. I'll call a cab, I said, pulling out my phone. And I'm serious, Liam. I'm changing the will. Neither you nor her will get a dime. I don't care about the money. He shook his head. I just don't want to lose you. You should have thought of that before. I turned away, dialing the number of the cab. While I waited for the dispatcher to answer, Veronica came out of the restaurant. Her face was pale but determined. Dorothy. She walked over to me, ignoring Liam's warning gesture. I understand you're angry, and you have a right to be. What I did was unforgivable. But think about Liam. He's innocent. Don't punish him because of me. He made his choice when he married you, I replied coldly. And he continues to make it every day by staying with you. I'll leave, she said suddenly. If you leave him in your will, I'll leave. Divorce him. Disappear from your life. Liam looked stunned. Veronica, what are you saying? I'm doing what I have to do, Liam. She didn't look at him, her gaze fixed on me. For your sake, or for my own? I raised an eyebrow. You expect me to believe that you're suddenly altruistic? That you're willing to give up your husband and your potential inheritance? I'm only giving up my husband, she shrugged. The inheritance could still be mine, in exchange for silence. So that's it. Blackmail. She offered a deal. She leaves Liam and I include her in the will and don't tell anyone about her attempted murder. You really think I'd agree to that? I shook my head. After what you did? Why wouldn't I? She shrugged. You get what you've always wanted. You get your son rid of me. I get the money. Everybody wins. Except justice, I pointed out. Justice? She grinned. Come on, Dorothy. There's no justice in the world. There are only the deals we make to survive. You're both crazy, Liam interjected, shifting his gaze from me to Veronica. You're talking about me like I'm not here, like I'm some kind of object that can be passed from hand to hand. Because you've never been an actor in your own life, Liam, I said sadly. Always an extra in other people's stories. The cab pulled up, and I headed for it, leaving Liam and Veronica standing outside the restaurant. A confused and betrayed man and a cold-blooded, calculating woman who would do anything for money. Looking at them through the back window of the cab, I felt relieved for the first time in a long time. It was as if a heavy weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I finally saw the truth, however bitter it was, and I knew that now my life would never be the same. But perhaps it was for the best. The morning after the scandal at the restaurant greeted me with a headache and a feeling of emptiness inside. I didn't sleep well, waking up every now and then from nightmares in which the car was flying into the abyss with its brakes failing. I could see Veronica's face cold, calculating, and the confused face of Liam, my only son, who was too weak to stand up to his wife. I brewed strong tea and sat at the kitchen window, looking out at the garden Frederick and I had once cultivated together. The rose bushes needed pruning. The lawn was overgrown with weeds. With Frederick gone, many chores had been neglected. I used to think that someday Liam would help me with the house. Now I realized how naive those thoughts had been. The phone rang around 9. I didn't want to answer it, but it could have been Peter Bloomfield, my lawyer, to whom I'd left a message last night. Dash dash. Hello? I tried to keep my voice normal. Dash dash mom. Question mark. Liam's voice sounded hoarse, like he'd been up all night too. We need to talk. I sighed, pinching the bridge of my nose. About what, Liam? I feel like everything was said last night. Please, he sounded desperate. I need to explain myself. Can I come over? Part of me wanted to say no, to slam the door in his face the way he'd slammed the door in his conscience. But the other part, the maternal part that never quite dies, wanted to give him a chance. Okay, I said at last, but alone. Without Veronica. Of course, he sounded almost pleased. I'll be there in half an hour. I hung up the phone and looked at my reflection in the window pane. Gray hair, wrinkles around my eyes and mouth, a tired look. 67 years old, not old enough by today's standards, but old enough to know that life is too short for a toxic relationship, even if it is with your own child. Liam arrived exactly 30 minutes later. Punctuality had always been his strong suit. He looked exhausted, circles under his eyes, wrinkled clothes, stubble on his usually smooth-shaven face. Mom? He stepped toward me as if he wanted to hug me, but stopped when he saw the look on my face. Thank you for agreeing to meet me. I silently led him into the kitchen. I made fresh tea, a habit that's hard to break. Even with a man who might have been an accomplice in your murder attempt, you honor the rules of hospitality. Talk, I said, sitting down across from him. Liam twirled the cup in his hands, hesitant to look me in the eye. I didn't know what she was planning to do with your car, he began. I swear, when you said it yesterday, it was as much of a shock to me as it was to you. But you knew she was up to something. It wasn't a question. He rubbed his face with his palms, a gesture he'd learned from his father when he had to admit an unpleasant truth. Yes, he said quietly. Veronica said that it wasn't safe for you to live alone, that she had to convince you to move. She suggested all sorts of scenarios. What scenarios, Liam? My voice was cold. Fake a fall. He wouldn't look at me. Nay, or a minor accident. Something that would scare you, but not seriously hurt you. Something to make you realize you needed help. And you said yes? No. He finally looked up. I mean, I didn't take it seriously. I thought she was just talking out loud. Veronica often makes plans that never come to fruition. But she did realize this one, I pointed out. Yes, he lowered his gaze again. And I can't tell you how shocked I am, how ashamed I am that I didn't stop her sooner, didn't take her words seriously. I looked at my son, a grown man who looked like a delinquent boy now. All his life he'd been seeking approval first from his strict father, then from his demanding wife, always trying to live up to other people's expectations, forgetting his own dignity. What happens next, Liam? I asked. Will you leave her? He looked up at me, confused. Yeah, I don't know. It's complicated. Complicated? I couldn't hide my bitterness. Your wife tried to kill your mother for money. What's complicated? She says she didn't mean to kill you, he said quietly, only to scare you, that she didn't think of the consequences. And you believe her? He was silent for a long time, and that silence was more eloquent than any words. I want to believe her, he said at last. Because the alternative is too scary. The alternative is that you're married to a woman who would kill for money. I shook my head. And that's really scary, Liam. But turning a blind eye to it is even scarier. We've been together 5 years, he sounded desperate. We share a life, friends, plans. And you and I share the same blood, I said sharply. 39 years of shared memories. Does that mean anything to you? Of course it does. He stood up, running his hand nervously through his hair. I love you, Mom. You're the only family I have left. But I can't just, throw away 5 years of marriage. Even if that marriage is based on a lie. I stood up too, looking him in the eye. Veronica didn't marry you for love, Liam. She was looking for stability, status. And now that she found out about the money, she showed her true colors. You never gave her a chance. He sounded defensive. From the beginning, you decided she wasn't worthy of me. And you were right. I waved my hands in the air. Look where we are now. Liam shook his head, his face contorted with an internal struggle. I can't just turn my back on her. We have to talk, figure things out. And what do you want to hear? I crossed my arms over my chest. What excuse would be good enough for attempted murder? I don't know. He was practically screaming. I'm just trying to make sense of this whole nightmare. We stood across from each other, mother and son, bound by blood but separated by an unbridgeable chasm of incomprehension. You need to make a choice, Liam, I said quietly. Me or her. Because I can't and won't deal with Veronica anymore, and if you stay with her, then I've lost you too. Don't make me choose, Mom. He looked almost frightened. Please. Life is about choices, Liam. I shook my head. Every day we make choices that define who we are. And right now, you have to make probably the most important choice of your life. He stood there, clenching and unclenching his fists, his face expressing such an internal struggle that I felt sorry for him. In spite of everything, he was still my son, weak, confused, but mine. I can't decide now, he said finally. I need time. Time won't change the facts, I shrugged, but you decide for yourself. Now please leave. I need to get ready for my meeting with my lawyer. Are you really going to change the will? There was a flicker of concern in his eyes. What do you think? I grinned bitterly. After everything that's happened? He lowered his head, unable to find the words. Then he walked slowly toward the door. He turned around on the threshold, looking so lost that for a second I almost forgot my resentment. I'll call you, he said quietly. Whatever you decide, I answered, closing the door behind him. An hour later, Peter Bloomfield, my lawyer, called, and we made an appointment for the next day. I decided not to put off changing my will, What had happened had shown me how fragile life could be. That evening, the phone rang. I expected to hear Liam, but it was Veronica on the other end of the line. Dorothy. Her voice sounded unusually soft. We need to talk. We have nothing to talk about. I was about to hang up, but her next words stopped me. I'm pregnant. I was silent for 2 seconds, trying to comprehend this information. So? I finally asked. Is that supposed to change anything? It's your grandson or granddaughter, she said with something akin to desperation in her voice. The only chance you have of continuing your line. Would you give up your own blood? How lucky you got pregnant. I couldn't hide my sarcasm. Just when you needed leverage. I found out 2 weeks ago. Her voice shook. Before this whole thing started, I was going to tell you at dinner. Before you gave me a fatal accident? I shook my head, though she couldn't see it. That's very thoughtful. I already told you I didn't mean to kill you. Now there was irritation in her voice. Only to scare you. By cutting the brake hoses? I couldn't believe her insolence. How was that supposed to only scare me? I didn't think, she stammered. I just wanted you to realize that it's dangerous for you to live alone, that you need help. My death wouldn't have helped me realize that, I said. There was a pause. I made a mistake, she said quietly. A terrible mistake. And I'm willing to pay for it. But don't make Liam choose between us, especially now that he's about to become a father. That's it. She'd already used pregnancy as a weapon against Liam. Now she was trying to use it against me. If you really are pregnant, I emphasized the word if, the baby deserves better than a mother who would kill for money. I wasn't gonna kill you, she exclaimed. Keep saying that, Veronica, I sighed. Maybe in time you'll believe it yourself. What do you want me to do? She sounded desperate. How can I make this right? You can't, I answered simply. Some actions can't be undone or undone. All you can do is live with the consequences. You will destroy our family. Her voice turned cold. You'll deprive your grandson or granddaughter of a grandmother, all because of your pride and stubbornness. No, Veronica. I felt anger rising inside me. You're the one who destroyed our family when you decided that my money was more important than my life. You're the one who robbed your child of his grandmother when you tried to kill her. Don't put the blame on me. You've always hated me. Her voice shook with anger. From day one, nothing was ever good enough for your precious Liam. You always looked down on me, thought I was unworthy. And you were right. I couldn't resist the comment. You'll regret it, she sounded threatening now, when you're all alone, when no one comes to visit you in your big empty house, when you die alone with no family around. Then you'll realize that your pride cost you everything. It's better to die alone with dignity than surrounded by people waiting for you to die, I replied and hung up the phone. My hands trembled as I poured myself a brandy, a drink I'd hardly touched since Frederick's passing. He loved a good brandy after dinner, and we often sat together in the parlor, sipping the golden liquid and talking about the day before. What would you do, Fred? I mentally asked, looking at his picture on the mantelpiece. He always had a knack for making tough decisions without letting his emotions cloud his judgment. But even Frederick, for all his practicality, couldn't have foreseen that our family would be in this situation. In the morning, I met Peter Bloomfield in his office, a small but elegant space in the Walnut Creek Business Center. Peter was Frederick's age. They had been friends since college. He always treated me with respect, even when I was just Fred's wife. Dorothy? He stood up to shake my hand. It's good to see you, although the circumstances are not the most pleasant. I summarized the situation for him. Veronica's attempt to ruin my car, the overheard conversation, the subsequent confrontation at the restaurant. Oh my God. Peter took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. This sounds like the plot of a crime novel. Did you go to the police? No, I shook my head. I have no direct evidence, only my neighbor's word and pictures of the damaged brakes. That's not enough. Maybe you should at least file a report, he suggested, so that there would be an official trail if something happens in the future. I'll think about it, I replied evasively. But right now, the main thing is to change the will. I don't want Liam or Veronica to get a dime of Frederick's inheritance. Peter looked at me carefully. Are you sure? It's a big step. Liam is your son, after all. A son who was willing to turn a blind eye to trying to kill his mother for money. I grinned bitterly. No, Peter, I've made up my mind. Good, he sighed. Who do you want to leave the inheritance to? I've already thought about that. Some of it to charitable organizations, the cancer foundation Frederick's father died of, a program for lonely seniors. Fred was always worried about old people without families, and maybe an educational fund for scholarships for engineering students, the kind Fred had been when he was young. Peter nodded, making notes. And the rest? I wondered. I don't know. Haven't decided yet. Maybe to Unaya, my friend, or Edgar, the neighbor who may have saved my life. I understand. Peter continued to write. I'll prepare the documents. It will take a few days. As soon as possible, please. I clutched my purse nervously. I don't feel safe after what happened. Dorothy? He looked at me with concern. Maybe you should go away for a while. Stay at a friend's house or a hotel. And show that I'm afraid? I shook my head. No, Peter, I'm not running away from my own home. When I returned home, I found a bouquet of flowers on my doorstep. Lilies, my favorite. Attached to them was a note. Mom, please give me time. I love you. Liam. I took the flowers into the house, placing them in a vase. They were beautiful, but they couldn't make a difference. Liam always thought material gestures could replace real actions. Birthday cards instead of visits, gifts at Christmas instead of help with the house, flowers instead of a firm decision to break up with the woman who tried to kill his mother. In the evening, Unia called. How are you, dear? Her voice was full of concern. I've been trying to call all day. I was at the lawyer's, I replied, sitting down in the chair. I'm changing my will. Right, she nodded decisively, though I couldn't see her. After what that witch did Liam show up? He came by this morning, I sighed, said he needed time to think about things. Time? Unaya was outraged. What's there to think about? His wife tried to kill his mother. Any normal person would have filed for divorce by now and helped the police file a report. Liam was never decisive. I smiled sadly. He'd always hoped that things would work themselves out if you gave them enough time. They won't this time, Unaya said flatly. By the way, did you file a police report? No, I shook my head. There's no direct evidence, just Edgar's words and pictures. You should report it anyway, she insisted, just so there was an official trail. What if she tries again? Veronica's too smart for that. I shook my head. She'll act differently now. Different how? Unaya was wary. She said she's pregnant. I sighed. She's using the baby as a shield and a weapon at the same time. Oh my God, Unaya exhaled. Is that true? I don't know, I answered honestly. She'd lie about that too, but if it's true, it's a poor kid. Yes, agreed Unaya. Growing up with a mother like that? Listen, why don't you move in with me for a while, just until things settle down? No, I was adamant. I'm not leaving my house. I'm not going to give her the satisfaction. Then I'll move in with you, Unaya said firmly. At least for a couple weeks. It would be safer. I wanted to object, but I realized that I would actually welcome the company. The house seemed too empty and too big for a lonely old woman. Okay, I agreed. If it's not too much trouble, what are you talking about? She laughed. We've been friends for 40 years. Of course, it's not a problem for me to support a friend in a time of need. I felt a little better after talking to Unaya. I had support, even if it wasn't from my family. Sometimes friends are closer than family. Before bed, I looked through photo albums, an old habit that always brought comfort. Here's Liam at 5, with a wide smile, showing off a loose baby tooth. Here he is at 12, serious, glasses on, book in hand. Here's his graduation from college, proud, in gown and cap, between Frederick and me. Somewhere along the way from that smiling boy to grown man, something went wrong. Maybe Frederick and I overprotected him. Maybe we didn't teach him to make the hard decisions, to take responsibility for his actions. I closed the album, feeling tears come to my eyes. No matter what happened, Liam would always be my son. But sometimes love means letting go, letting a person reap the rewards of their decisions, even if those rewards are bitter. With that thought, I went to bed, not knowing what tomorrow would bring, but determined not to let any more toxic relationships poison my life. It had been 3 months since that night at the Azure restaurant, 3 months that had changed my life more than the previous 30 years. Today, I stood in the empty living room of the house where I'd lived most of my life and felt nothing but relief. Tomorrow, the new owners would get the keys, a young family with 2 children who would run around the same rooms where little Liam once ran around. Unia stayed with me for 2 months, insisting she wouldn't leave me alone until things settled down. In that time, she and I traveled to several cities before I found what I was looking for. A small, cozy house in Carmel, only 3 hours from Walnut Creek, but far enough away to make a fresh start. Are you sure you want to do this? Unaya asked me as I signed the papers to sell the house. So many memories. That's exactly why I want to leave, I replied. Too many memories, not all of them pleasant. Peter Bloomfield, my lawyer and friend, supported my decision. Sometimes you have to put the past behind you to move forward, he said, helping with the paperwork. Fred would understand. In those 3 months, Liam called 6 times and came twice, each time alone, without Veronica, each time with new promises, explanations, excuses. She really didn't mean to kill you, Mom, he said, sitting across from me in the kitchen during his last visit. She just didn't think about the consequences. And you're still with her. It wasn't a question. He lowered his eyes, rubbing his neck in a familiar gesture, just like his father did when he felt awkward. She's pregnant, Mom. 4th month. It's my baby, your grandson or granddaughter. So you've chosen, I nodded, feeling neither surprised nor disappointed. Only fatigue. I didn't choose. He raised his voice, then lowered his tone. It's complicated. I can't leave her now. I can't leave my baby. You can divorce Veronica and still be a father to the baby, I pointed out. A lot of people do that. She's changed, Mom. His eyes were pleading. After that incident, she's realized a lot of things, and she really wants to make up with you. No, I shook my head. Some bridges are burned forever, Liam. I forgave you for being weak, but Veronica is unforgivable for what she did. But the baby? He started again. The baby is not to blame for anything, I agreed. And if you want to bring him to me when he's born, I'd be happy to, but without Veronica. He left upset, but strangely enough, I felt freer than ever. For the first time in my life, I put my well-being above the expectations of others. For the first time, I wasn't afraid to be a bad mom by not agreeing to a compromise that would destroy me. Veronica tried to contact me too, first through Liam, then directly. Calls, letters, even a fruit and deli basket with a note full of remorse. I didn't respond to any of her gestures. Some behaviors cannot be forgiven, and attempted murder is one of them. Her last move was to try to come to my house. She stood on the doorstep with a visibly rounded belly and a look of humility on her face. "Dorothy, please," she began when I opened the door. "Hear me out." "No," I blocked her way into the house. "Get out or I'll call the police." "I'm pregnant." She put her hand on her stomach like it was a shield. "Would you kick out a pregnant woman who's carrying your grandchild?" "I will kick out the woman who tried to kill me," I replied calmly, "whether she's pregnant or not." "I didn't try to kill you." There was desperation in her voice. "How many times do I have to say it?" "As many times as you want. It won't change anything." I started to close the door. "Goodbye, Veronica." "You'll regret this," she hissed, and the mask of remorse fell away, revealing her true face. "When you're all alone, with no family, no grandchildren, when there's no one to take care of you in your old age, I'd rather be alone than with people who want me dead," I replied, closing the door. After that visit, I finally decided to sell the house and leave. Not out of fear, I wasn't afraid of Veronica, but out of a desire to start a new chapter of life, free of toxic relationships and bitter memories. Edgar, my neighbor who saved my life, helped with the move. We have grown closer over the months, not romantically, but as good friends who understand the value of mutual support as we age. "I'll miss our tea parties," he said as he helped me pack the dishes, "and your stories of traveling with Frederick. Carmel isn't that far away." I smiled. "You can come visit. It's a beautiful view of the ocean." "I will," he nodded. "As soon as you get settled in." Edgar was one of the few people who knew my new address. I decided not to give it to Liam. At least not yet. If he really wanted to find me, he could contact me through Peter or Unaya. On my last night at the old house, I sat on the veranda, watching the sun set over the horizon, coloring the sky in shades of pink and gold. How many sunsets like this had I seen while sitting here with Frederick? How many conversations, plans, dreams have we shared on this very veranda? "Am I doing the right thing, Fred?" I asked aloud, knowing I wouldn't get an answer. But somehow I thought he would approve of my decision. Frederick had always appreciated my independence, my strength. He would be disappointed in his son, but proud of me. In the morning, I loaded the last boxes into the car and walked around the empty house one last time. Strangely, I felt no sadness, only peace and lightness, as if I was shedding a heavy load I'd been carrying for too long. The drive to Carmel took a little over 3 hours. My new home was smaller but cozier, a one-story Spanish-style cottage with a terrace overlooking the ocean. It was perfect for someone my age. No stairs, everything within walking distance, including the beach, where I planned to take morning walks. The first few days were spent settling in. Unaya came to help, and together we turned the empty rooms into a cozy abode. She stayed for a week, and we explored the city together. Small stores, galleries, cafes. "You'll love it here," she said as we sat in a small restaurant overlooking the ocean. "There are a lot of people like you here, active retirees looking for peace, but not isolation." She was right. Within 2 weeks, I had already met my neighbors, a couple about my age, Helen and Roy Baxter, and a lonely widow, May Simmons, who invited me to the local book club. "We get together every Thursday," May said, smiling. "We discuss the book, drink wine, gossip. Very civilized." I agreed, and it turned out to be one of the best decisions. At the book club, I met 5 other women, different ages, professions, personalities, but equally interesting and open to new friendships. "How did you end up in Carmel?" Sandra, a former literature teacher, asked me on my first visit to the club. "It's a long story," I replied evasively. "We have a lot of time on our hands." She smiled. "And we love a good story." And I told them, not all of them, of course, but enough for them to understand. I left a toxic family relationship to start a new life. "Bravo!" exclaimed Barbara, the oldest of the group, who was in her 80s. It's never too late to send everything to hell and start over. They laughed, nodded, and shared their stories of difficult decisions and new beginnings. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had found my place, my circle, people who understood me without having to pretend or make excuses. A month after the move, Peter called. Dash Dorothy. His voice sounded serious. I have some news that might interest you. I'm listening, I said, sitting down in a chair on the terrace overlooking the ocean. Veronica has been arrested. I remained silent, waiting for her to continue. Your neighbor, Edgar, it turns out, not only saw her digging under your car, but he also filmed it on the surveillance camera that was mounted on his house. He didn't tell you because he wanted to make sure the footage was good enough to be admitted into evidence. And was it admissible? I felt my heart racing. Yes, along with pictures of the brake damage and witness statements. The police arrested her yesterday on a charge of attempted murder. I exhaled, not realizing I'd been holding my breath. And Liam? He wasn't involved. At least there's no proof. Peter was quiet, but rumor has it he filed for divorce. Veronica's lawyer is trying to soften the charges by citing her pregnancy, but the prosecutor is serious. I see. I didn't know what else to say. Strangely, I felt neither triumph nor relief, only fatigue and a kind of detachment, as if we were talking about characters in a book, not real people in my life. Are you okay? Peter asked after a pause. Yeah, I nodded, though he couldn't see it. It's just, it doesn't seem so important anymore, like it happened to someone else in another life. I understand. I could hear the smile in his voice. How do you like Carmel? It's beautiful. I looked out at the ocean, where the sun was setting, coloring the water golden. It's peaceful, and the people, real. We talked some more about the little things of life, about my new home, about the book club. Not another word about Veronica or Liam. That chapter was closed. After talking to Peter, I sat on the terrace for a long time, watching the sun disappear over the horizon. Veronica had been arrested. Liam had filed for divorce. It seemed like I should feel satisfied, even triumphant, but instead I felt only quiet sadness, not for myself, but for them, for the woman whose greed had ruined her life, for the man whose weakness had cost him his family, for the child who would be born into this atmosphere of betrayal and bitterness. The next day, Liam called, "Mom?" His voice sounded broken. "You've probably heard by now." "Yes," I answered simply. "Peter told me." "I didn't know," he said quickly, as if he was afraid I'd hang up. "I swear I didn't know Edgar had the tape. I didn't know that she really—" "I believe you," I said quietly. "You were just turning a blind eye to the obvious. You always do." There was a pause. "I filed for divorce," he said finally. I, I'd like to see you. See where you live now. Maybe come visit you." I thought about it. Part of me wanted to say yes, to hug my son, to support him in his time of need. But the other part, the wiser part, the part that had been through so much understood that some breaks were necessary for healing. "Not now, Liam," I finally answered. "I need time, and so do you." "But you're my mother." He sounded desperate. "I just lost my wife, and I'm about to become a single father. I need your support, and I needed your support when your wife tried to kill me," I said without anger, just stating the fact. "But you chose her." "I was wrong." His voice shook. "I was weak. Please give me a chance to make it right." "Maybe later," I said after a pause, "when the wounds have healed a little, when we're both ready, but not now." After talking to my son, I went to the beach. It had become my daily ritual, a morning walk along the water's edge, when the beach was still empty and the sun was just beginning to rise above the horizon. I walked, feeling the cool sand sagging beneath my feet, listening to the cries of the seagulls and the sound of the waves, simple, timeless sounds that reminded me that life goes on, no matter what. In the evening, I went to a book club meeting. We discussed Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway, a book about a woman reflecting on her life, the choices she made, and the roads she didn't take. What do you think of Clarissa's decision to marry Richard instead of Peter? Sandra asked, leading the discussion. Was it the right choice? I don't think there are right or wrong choices in life, I answered, surprising myself. There are only the choices we make and the consequences we live with. The women looked at me with interest. Keep going, Dorothy, Sandra nodded. It's an interesting thought. Clarissa chose security and stability over passion and uncertainty. I shrugged. Who can say whether she would have been happier with Peter? Maybe she would have been. Maybe she wouldn't. But she made the choice she thought was right at the time and lived with it for the rest of her life. There's power in that. Like your decision to start a new life here, May said softly. It takes strength to leave the past behind, too. I smiled at her gratefully. These women I'd only known for a month understood me better than my own family. After the meeting, I walked home under the starry sky, feeling strangely peaceful. Life doesn't end at 67. It just takes new forms, opens up new possibilities if you're willing to see them. At home, I sat down at my computer and wrote a letter to Liam. Not an electronic one, but a real one, on paper. I told him about my new life, my house overlooking the ocean, my book club, my new friends, about how I didn't hold a grudge against him, but I needed time to heal, about how maybe someday we could rebuild a relationship, but on a new basis of mutual respect and honesty. The baby is not my fault in any way, I wrote at the end. When he or she is born, I will be happy to meet the grandson or granddaughter, but on my terms and on my time. In the meantime, live your life, Liam. Learn to stand on your own 2 feet. Make your own decisions. Maybe then we can meet not as mother and son in need of guidance, but as two adults who respect each other's choices. As I sealed the letter, I felt as if I had closed the last page of a long, complicated book. The story wasn't over, just a new volume beginning, with blank pages waiting to have new chapters written on them. In the morning, I sent the letter and went to the beach. The sun was just rising, coloring the sky and ocean in soft pink tones. I walked along the water's edge, feeling the cool waves wash over my feet, washing away the marks in the sand, the way time washes away the traces of the past if you let it. At 67, I started a new life, not because the old one ended, but because I realized it's never too late to choose yourself, your happiness, your peace. It's never too late to free yourself from toxic relationships, even if they are relationships with your own children. It's never too late to open a new door when the old one has slammed shut. And in this new life, in this quiet coastal town, with new friends and new hobbies, I finally felt truly free. Free of expectations, free of obligations, free of guilt, free to just be myself. Dorothy Harlow, a woman who had lived a long life, made many mistakes, but had finally found the courage to start over. And that was the most valuable lesson I could pass on to my grandson or granddaughter, should I ever meet them. It's never too late to change your life. It's never too late to choose yourself. It's never too late to be happy.